Mike is one of the most respected voices in hip-hop, not just as a rapper, as a thinker, as somebody who has spent his entire career talking about black liberation, economic empowerment, community building. This is a man who co-owns a barbershop, who ran a bank, who has stood on stages and told black people to invest in themselves, build with each other, stop waiting for the system to save you. So when Killer Mike breaks down crying on his own podcast, not performing, not rapping, not giving a speech, just sitting there with tears falling down his face, you stop, you pay attention, because this is not a man who cries easily. And what he said next got him called a racist, got him trending on Twitter, got Steven Crowder and every right-wing media personality running to their cameras to make clips about him. But before you let anybody tell you what Killer Mike said, I want you to hear it for yourself. And I want you to understand exactly what pushed him to that breaking point.
Questions are high tonight in Columbia, South Carolina, following the shooting death of a 14-year-old boy who was falsely accused of shoplifting. The gas station owner, who has a history of confrontations with customers, has been charged with murder. CBS's Nicole Scango reports the community is fed up with yet another senseless loss of life.
Mourners protested outside this convenience store in Columbia, South Carolina, to remember 14-year-old Cyrus Carmack Belton, who was shot and killed the night before by the store owner. Hours later, rioters broke in, smashing merchandise and toppling shelves, angry over the loss of another young black life.
It was nothing but looting, just plain, pure looting. And what does that got to do with that 14-year-old?
According to the sheriff, on Sunday night, Belton took water bottles from a cooler before putting them back. The store's owner, 58-year-old Rick Chow, thought he was stealing. After they argued, Belton left and was chased down the street by Chow and his son. Then, Chow observed what looked to be a firearm, pulled out his Glock, and fired one shot, hitting the 14-year-old in his back, piercing his heart. The boy's gun was found at the scene.
Let me give you the full picture first, because a lot of people jump to react without knowing all the facts. Cyrus Carmack Belton, 14 years old, Columbia, South Carolina. He walks into a convenience store. He picks up some water bottles from a cooler. He puts them back. He does not steal anything. The store owner, 58-year-old Rick Chow, thinks he's stealing. They argue. Cyrus leaves the store. Here is where it gets unforgivable. Rick Chow does not call the police. Rick Chow does not let the boy leave. Rick Chow and his son chase this 14-year-old child down the street. And then Rick Chow pulls out his Glock and fires one shot that hits Cyrus Belton in the back. The bullet pierces his heart. A 14-year-old boy dies in the street over water bottles he put back. Now here is the detail that makes this even harder to swallow. The sheriff confirms that Cyrus had a gun on him. But here's what the sheriff also says, and this is the part the news coverage buried. They do not believe he pointed the gun at anyone. His back was turned. He was running away. He was running in the opposite direction when he was shot.
A verdict came back. He was ultimately found not guilty. But honestly, nobody understands this decision. I don't understand the verdict. I listened to every single detail revolving this case. I don't understand it at all. How can somebody be a threat to you when they are running full speed in the opposite direction? They're running away from you in the opposite direction with their complete back turned to you. How are they a threat to you? And the only eyewitness to this situation was the man's son. His son was the only eyewitness. Newsflash.
Think about that for a second. The legal argument for not guilty for self-defense is that Rick Chow felt threatened, but the boy's back was turned. He was running away. You cannot claim self-defense against someone who is fleeing from you. That is not self-defense. That is a chase. That is a hunt. And then it gets worse. The only eyewitness to this shooting, the only person who saw exactly what happened in those final seconds was Rick Chow's own son, his son, the same son who was running alongside his father, chasing this child down the street. That son took the stand and said Cyrus pointed the gun. His word against the dead boy's silence. Rick Chow was charged with murder. The case went to trial. The verdict came back not guilty, not guilty.
That a lot of people in the black community feel. because Killer Mike believes that we have now reached a point in our relationship with the Asian community to where he feels like it's too far gone and there's really no bridging the gap or turning back. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that message. I don't believe that the actions of this one Asian man speaks for an entire community of people, but I do understand that Killer Mike was emotional. I do understand that this really affected Killer Mike, much as it affected a lot of people in our community. So I don't think whatever Killer Mike is saying should be treated as literal, but Killer Mike did say a lot of truths as well. He did say a lot of facts. He did say a lot of things that reflects the current sentiment in our community.
I saw a black child, South Carolina, walked out of a store. When confronted, showed I don't have anything. Chased out of that store and shot in the back and killed by a population of people who, since immigrating to this country, have quietly built the number 1 or 2, house incomes through having ownership of stores in our community. And nothing has changed.
That clip right there, that is not a performance. You cannot fake that. Killer Mike has been in this industry for over 20 years. He has seen things. He has spoken about things that would break most people. And he is sitting there with tears in his eyes because he is tired. Not angry in the way people want to dismiss, not irrational, not dangerous, not racist. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from watching the same thing happen over and over again your entire life and realizing nothing has changed. And this is where Killer Mike says something that got him in trouble. He says that we have reached a point in the relationship between the black community and the Asian community where he feels like it is too far gone. He says bridging the gap no longer feels possible to him. Now, I want you to hold that thought, because before we get to why people lost their minds over that statement, I need you to understand where that feeling comes from. Because Killer Mike did not wake up one morning and randomly decide to be done with an entire community. This is a conclusion that came from decades of watching a specific pattern repeat itself.
Chased out of that store and shot in the back and killed by a population of people who, since immigrating to this country, have quietly built the number 1 or 2, house incomes through having ownership of stores in our community. And nothing has changed. That man was let off the case, and it just gets difficult. It gets difficult because, man, we as a people, if the world is not going to treat us differently, it starts to turn into, well, like your therapist would say, what can you control? Just yourself. Where's my accountability in this? And it's not enough to just hate the other person anymore. It's not enough to just hate the Asian store and burn them down and boycott them. And I do think all of that. I'm at a point now where I'm just like, enough.
He is not calling for violence. He is not saying go out and harm people. He is saying, and I think most people who actually listened understood this, he is saying that the emotional energy required to keep extending good faith to a community that keeps allowing this to happen without accountability, he does not have that energy anymore. And he is asking out loud what the alternative looks like when goodwill keeps getting you nowhere. That is a very human thing to feel. That is not racism. That is exhaustion.
What we are facing here is there is an inherent suspicion of black folks that are being passed down in these communities. The kid walks into the shop. He empties out his pockets. He left his backpack at the door. Hey, I don't have nothing. And that was not enough. The inherent suspicion of black folks, the inherent, they're out to get me from Asians towards black people, Killer Mike is saying that pattern is making it almost impossible for these two communities to work together. In no way is Killer Mike saying that black people should be out here doing harm to Asian people. What Killer Mike is saying is they have an inherent suspicion of black folks. And we are sick and tired of being sick and tired. We're sick and tired of having to prove that we are not up to no good. We're sick and tired of having to prove.
This is the part of the conversation that people skipped over to get to the controversial sound bites. Because Killer Mike is not making an emotional argument here. He is making a structural one. The kid walks into the shop. He empties his pockets. He leaves his backpack at the door. He says out loud, "I do not have anything." And it still was not enough, because the suspicion was already there before he walked through the door. The suspicion is not based on what Cyrus did. It is based on what Cyrus looks like. And Killer Mike's point, which is backed up by research, by documented history, by case after case, is that this suspicion is not accidental. It is passed down. It is taught. It is embedded in the way certain immigrant communities were told to see Black Americans before they even arrived in this country. You were told that these neighborhoods are dangerous. You were told that these people will rob you. You were told to be afraid. And that fear, that inherited suspicion, got a 14-year-old boy shot in the back. Now here is the layered part that most people missed entirely. Killer Mike is not just angry at Rick Chow. He is not just angry at the jury. He is pointing at a system that placed Asian-owned businesses in Black neighborhoods specifically. A system that positioned these two communities next to each other, one with capital, one with consumer spending, and then stood back and let the tension build. And every time something like this happens, that system watches from a distance while the two communities tear each other apart.
So you as the model minority always see us as beneath you. And yet you need us because you could never put a store in the master class's neighborhood. And if we won't unite against them,
we won't unite for ourselves.
Yeah, but if we won't unite, I mean, the Asians and...
That right there is the most important thing Killer Mike said in this entire conversation, and almost nobody talked about it. He is saying the Asian community built generational wealth in Black communities. The #1 and #2 household incomes among immigrant communities in America built largely through ownership of businesses in Black neighborhoods. That is not a conspiracy theory. That is documented economic history. And Killer Mike is asking, if we are the foundation of your economic mobility in this country, why do you still look at us like we are beneath you? Why does the suspicion never go away? That is not a racist question. That is actually a really important economic and social question that deserves a serious answer.
It's not working where you can hunt down a child and they let you get away with it 2 times in my lifetime. We should be finding you.
No. I believe in eye for eye,
what we should be doing. Not saying what we're gonna do.
Meaning the thought comes up.
I am aware of the Arab struggle and the Palestinian struggle because in my lifetime, I have seen men strap bombs to themselves to say, you will pay this attention. And I'm telling this country, you're coming to point of crisis with a group of people who, right or wrong, we're here. We're part of the fabric. We have nowhere else to go. But if you're training groups of people to see us as beneath, if we're participating in that stereotype due to circumstance, this is what we know.
Hold on. Yo, Killer Mike got to slow down, man. As a Black man, saying things like that have ramifications. I don't think y'all understood what he just said.
Okay, so this is the clip that went viral. This is the clip that Steven Crowder ran with. This is the clip that had people calling for Killer Mike to be canceled, calling him dangerous, calling him a terrorist sympathizer. Let me be very clear about something first. I am not here to defend the specific words Killer Mike used, and even the host in this podcast, who clearly has sympathy for Killer Mike's emotional state, said on camera that he disavows that specific statement. He could not even repeat it on the platform without risking the video getting taken down. But here is what I will say. Context matters. Killer Mike is a man who just watched a 14-year-old boy get shot in the back, who just watched the man who pulled the trigger walk free, who has watched this same story, different names, different cities, same outcome, repeat itself his entire life. He is sitting there with tears on his face. He is not writing policy. He is not issuing threats. He is expressing the kind of desperate, cornered frustration that comes from feeling like every legitimate avenue has failed. When people in history have resorted to extreme measures and Killer Mike is referencing historical examples, not making personal plans, it is almost always because they felt like every other option was taken from them. That is not a justification, but it is an explanation. And there is a difference.
Hold on, yo, Killer Mike gotta slow down, man. As a black man, saying things like that have ramifications. I don't think y'all understood what he just said. Rewind that back, the last 20 or 30 seconds, rewind that back and listen to that again. He not talking about Asians. Rewind that back and listen to that again. I can't even repeat what he just said because I understand the guidelines of this platform. That, I want to say I disavow that. I don't think people strapping anything to themselves and committing the crimes they committed is okay. I think that's wrong. But I do understand the brother is emotional. The brother is angry. A 14-year-old black boy just lost his life and he didn't have to, right? And I reflect that anger. And I don't think right now an emotional brother.
The host's reaction here is actually the correct one. You acknowledge the line was crossed. You acknowledge the emotional context, and you give somebody who has been a consistent voice for black empowerment the grace to come back and give a clearer statement when the grief is not so raw. That is not what Steven Crowder did. Steven Crowder took the most inflammatory 30 seconds of a 15-minute emotional response to a child's death and built a narrative around it, because that is what bad faith actors do. They do not engage with the argument. They find the moment that is easiest to misrepresent and they run with it.
Now, Steven Crowder would then go back to like the 90s, when people in LA was boycotting, was burning down Asian businesses in protest of the Asian lady shooting and killing a 15-year-old girl. And they will use this as an example like, y'all want an eye for eye? Y'all don't like Asian people now, but y'all did this to them first. So, but clearly he does it out of context. When you put it into context, again, it's not okay, but it becomes at least more understandable. Black folks didn't just wake up one day and started burning down Asian businesses and started attacking Asian people. No, this was a protest. This was a cause and effect. This was people reacting to a 15-year-old girl losing her life.
This is not new. That is the thing that people who are performing outrage over Killer Mike's comments do not want to acknowledge. This tension between black and Asian communities in America, specifically around store ownership in black neighborhoods, goes back decades. In 1991 in Los Angeles, a 15-year-old black girl named Latasha Harlins went into a store. The Korean store owner accused her of stealing orange juice. She had money in her hand to pay for it. The store owner shot her in the back of the head. She died. The store owner was convicted of voluntary manslaughter and received no prison time, probation, community service, a fine. A few months later, Rodney King, the riots, and Korean-owned businesses across South Central Los Angeles burned. Now, here is what Steven Crowder and people like him do with that history. They point to the burning of those businesses and say, see, black people are violent. Black people destroy their own communities. Black people are anti-Asian. They strip away every single piece of context. They remove Latasha Harlins. They remove the store owner who shot her. They remove the judge who gave no prison time. They remove decades of a specific economic arrangement that positioned these communities against each other. And then they ask why tension still exists 30 years later.
Black folks didn't just wake up one day and started burning out Asian businesses and started attacking Asian people. No, this was a protest. This was a cause and effect. This was people reacting to a 15-year-old girl losing her life.
Cause and effect. That is what Killer Mike is talking about. Not hatred, not racism, cause and effect. And until people are willing to look honestly at the cause, including the systemic forces that created this arrangement in the first place, we are going to keep having the same conversation every few years when another child gets shot.
From Killer Mike, that blacks should now be finding Asians, is that I noticed the pandering from people, because I don't think Killer Mike is a stupid person, but he panders to people as though they are stupid. He assumes that, I guess he's assuming black people don't understand the concept of work. Allow me to explain. When he says hunt, you could go out and you could just hunt a black child. Like, do you know the amount of work that goes into hunting?
If chasing a 14-year-old out the store, running after him and shooting him in the back isn't hunting, then what is hunting?
Strip away the controversial moment. Strip away the emotional language. What is the core of what Killer Mike is saying? He is saying there is an inherent suspicion of black people that exist in certain communities, and that suspicion has been used to justify violence against black people, specifically black children, multiple times. And the legal system has repeatedly failed to deliver accountability for that violence. He is saying that the economic relationship between certain immigrant communities and black neighborhoods is built on a foundation that black people did not choose and do not fully benefit from, and that the communities profiting from that relationship have not done enough to challenge the biases that lead to moments like what happened to Cyrus Belton. He is saying that at some point, when you keep extending goodwill and keep getting shot in the back, literally and figuratively, you start to question whether that goodwill is serving you. None of that is racist. All of it is worth discussing seriously. The backlash against Killer Mike was not really about the words he used in one emotional moment. The backlash was about people being uncomfortable with the larger conversation he was starting. Because if you actually engage with his argument, if you actually sit with the pattern he is describing, you have to ask some uncomfortable questions about how this country works and who benefits from keeping these communities divided. And a lot of people would rather just call him a racist and move on. Killer Mike is going to come back and give his sober-minded take. He already has in interviews since this clip went viral. And when he does, most people will move on to the next outrage cycle. But Cyrus Belton is still dead. Rick Chow is still free. And the next time a 14-year-old walks into a store in the wrong neighborhood and gets treated like a threat before he even opens his mouth, we are going to be right back here having this same conversation. The question is not whether Killer Mike said something in one emotional moment that he probably wishes he had phrased differently. The question is whether we are actually willing to look at what produced that moment. Whether we are willing to look at the system, not just the individuals that keeps producing these outcomes. Because until we are, the tears are going to keep falling, and not just from Killer Mike. If this video made you think, drop a comment. Tell me what you actually think about this situation, not the outrage version, the real version. And if you want to understand the full pattern of how these community tensions get manufactured and maintained, I am dropping a video next week that goes even deeper. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it.